Welcome, everybody, to the RSN podcast. That stands for Rich, Sal, and Nick. Three guys who just know how to talk anything and everything pro wrestling, whether it's WWE, ROH, Lucha Underground, TNA. If you're just checking us out right now, welcome aboard. We have past episodes as well, WCW, Rise and Fall of ECW, Women of Wrestling. We have so much, so feel free to check us out. But for the next hour or so, maybe a little bit less than that, we're going to be discussing the fallout from the highly critically acclaimed Royal Rumble 2016 and the post-Rumble Raw. Now, my name is Nick. I'm the founder, editor-in-chief of ProWrestlingOpinion.com, where we offer exclusive, in-depth, segment-by-segment coverage of WWE, TNA, ROH, Lucha Underground, Pro Wrestling Syndicate. We'll even throw West Coast Wrestling Connection and AML Wrestling. That's America's Most Liked Wrestling Live. So check us out. We also offer opinion pieces on several different WWE topics. We got a lot going on, so feel free to check us out as well. Right now, I'm going to throw it to my other guys, Rich and Sal.
What's up, guys? This is Rich. We have Sal on the other line.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Sal, would you want to start off the Royal Rumble?
Well, I mean, this whole week, there's been a lot of speculation. I mean, you got to think about it. It's basically the road to WrestleMania. But, I mean, it's pretty crazy. This is like the start of where the wrestling world starts buzzing. And you actually saw it from this Sunday. I mean, there's a lot of different moments that happened, a lot of different things this past week alone. I mean, you got to take into account early in the week it was the Royal Rumble. Then after that, it was the Monday Night Raw, following SmackDown, and, also Lucha Underground. So it's a big week for wrestling, a very big week, and they kicked it off pretty big. I mean, it's the first pay-per-view of 2016, So, it's pretty crazy how they broke it down. But, so, basically we're just going to talk about different, the moments, the big spots that happened, our reaction, basically, to the whole pay-per-view and how it was, basically, and the fallout from Raw. Rich, let me ask you.
Yeah.
For, basically, there were 3 hours, right? So 3 hours in the pay-per-view. It was a pretty big night. A lot of big things happened. Would you say that the first hour really brought out something big? They really kicked it off pretty well,
Well, to me, the big moment from the first hour would have to be the whole match of Kevin Owens versus Dean Ambrose, the last man standing.
Yep.
That was one hell of a match.
To be honest, that was the match of the night. And that was only the opening match.
Yep.
That was the match of
the night. And
it
was a pretty good way to kick it off. Yeah, and there was a match of the night for sure. That was the only singles match of the night. But, that really kicked off 2016. That was a really good way to kick it off. Because you saw a lot of good spots, a lot of different good things. And if you ask any other wrestling fan, they'll tell you the same thing.
Let me ask both of you guys a question. What was the low point of that match, if there was one?
I can't think of one.
Yeah, it's hard to say because, really there wasn't. It was crazy because there was a lot of, extreme moments, as you would dub it, where it was just, somebody going to a table, chair shot. But if you really notice, what really striking was the fact that, if you notice, you know how WWE has this penalty about chair shots over the head. It was interesting. They actually did a spot for that. So, how do you think the people in the backstage were kind of thinking of that? Was that kind of a critical moment? That was kind of, maybe pushing the edge a little bit?
It was pushing the envelope, but I don't think there's going to be any major repercussions.
Are you talking about the moment when he threw the chair at his head? If I'm trying to remember it correctly.
Yeah, he did I think Dean did a Sabu move where he went ahead and took the chair, threw it to his face, and then a part of it got stuck in his head and everything. Just selling it a little bit. But
I think that was a botch. I think Owens was supposed to throw his arm up.
Yeah, I feel like
he reacted fast enough.
They should. I mean, overall, the whole night, they should really, there was a lot of botches. You could really tell from a lot of other matches, too. But specifically this one, I think that was kind of a spot where backstage, I think Vince was like throwing a fit, you know, they're saying, "Oh my God, we can't do this," because you gotta take into account they have this whole concussion lawsuit from the other superstars, Big Vito,
Chris
um,
Masters.
Chris Masters, a whole list of other
Oh wait,
talent that are
I'm
staying.
sorry, Chris Mordetsky.
Right, Chris Mordesky,
Such a better name.
mhm. I mean, there's a lot of different people, old wrestlers that are having this lawsuit, and they're fighting out with WWE right now. They're kind of pissed about it, that this is happening and everything. But it's kind of a scary moment. That was kind of interesting.
But to be honest, I think Owens was supposed to throw his arm up.
Yeah.
I think it was just a mistake. I think it was a mistiming.
True. I mean, but overall, it was a pretty good match. Two indie guys, a lot of history. Perfect.
I'd give that, to be honest, I'd give that a 5 out of 5.
It was. I'd say the same. I agree. What about you,
It was a
Nick?
5-star match.
Yeah, it kind of just started like right from the opening bell, and it just had such like a high pace to it, and they never really calmed down from that point, and they were just throwing weapons, kendo sticks, and those weren't any cheap shots either. Those were like some hard kendo stick slaps, and you also had the chairs, and then you had the tables, and
Kind of reminds
basically
me of old ECW.
yeah, and to be fair, both guys come from a background of, from working in indie style, where they've worked that kind of hardcore style. They've done it before. Kevin's had his hand of, blood feuds in ROH, where he's resorted to those kinds of things, and Dean obviously has that background in CCW, and it kind of just comes together, and they still did it under the WWE environment, but it worked in such a way that it could please both, just WWE fans that don't, watch anything else, and then even to the point where the internet people could enjoy it as well. And that was something that, I found amazing, that they were able to take something that both, like, the casuals and the diehards could get into. And that table spot at the end, that was crazy.
That was amazing.
No matter what was going to happen, whether it was going to be a superplex or even just Owens just falling through that, just the fact that we haven't seen a stacked table spot in forever, and for it to happen there, I mean, you couldn't put the icing on the cake in any better way, at least in my opinion.
Well, the last stacked table spot was the Wyatts and the Dudleys. But before that, I can't even think of it.
True. I mean, that was probably one in a long time, but it was a pretty good way they packaged that, and they kind of brought up the old school and the new school.
It was amazing.
It was very indeed, and it was pretty crazy that the creative allowed for that match. So big bravo to them for that. But moving on,
Kevin Dunn actually did something good.
It might have been Kevin Dunn. I mean, we don't know who it is.
I
it
doubt
might have been
that.
someone else. Hopefully, it's not what's his name, Josh. I don't know.
I think it was Jimmy Jacobs.
Probably, I've heard some people were. There was like a whole thing. Raj Kapoor also, he's a head writer for Raw. Michael Hayes, they might have done something. But I mean, moving on. Another big thing that happened. Title changed. The U.S. title changed to Kalisto.
Again, for the 13th time.
Yeah, I mean, there's this pattern going on where they're playing a little bit hot potato with the title. I mean, do you guys feel it's good for the U.S. title, or
I don't.
I mean,
If you realize, it seems to be each person holds the title for at least 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like they're building it up to something big. I mean, we talked about it before, where WWE was trying to capitalize on a new Latino star to focus on that main demographic, the growing the second highest demographic in America right now. So I think they're trying to attract that. It's pretty smart of them, but do you guys feel that this back and forth of the titles really is helping them, or is it hurting them?
It's hurting.
It's hurting because if you remember in the previous podcast, me and you, Sal, we talked about this. It's going to lose interest in viewers, flip-flopping back and forth every 2 weeks for a title.
True. I mean, after the fact, after looking at that, that change, it was kind of like, okay, so where do they go from here? What's going to happen next 2 weeks? Going to have another title change?
The only title that actually kept people intrigued, which flip-flopped, was always the hardcore title, because the 24/7 rule, and it was always entertaining.
True. I mean, it was unexpected, but at the same time, it was interesting to see that. But like with this, I think they feel like they're trying to bring back something for the United States title. But for that title, it kind of degrades it a little bit, in my opinion, because it kind of like you're basically playing hot potato. So that's how easy it is to lose it and gain it. It's kind of a one-way street, you know. It's like they have to do something with that. But I mean, nonetheless, it was a great victory, a great way. You know, Kalisto won the belt. You know, everybody's happy, whatever. But moving on, the third hour, actually the second hour, big things happen. Divas title match. What do you guys think about that?
Sasha Banks.
Yeah, I was actually, yeah, that was, I think the Charlotte Becky Lynch storyline has been by far and most the best Divas storyline to date, at least in 3 or 4 years. Yeah, they were taking elements of what made NXT, you know, so effective. It's this simple, basic, effective booking. There's no teams. There's no this. There's no that. Yeah, you got long matches, but what's a match without a storyline to it? Here, you had a really good storyline. She had the heel champion with Charlotte, who abandoned her, her pact with Lynch to never, use family or fame to drive away from getting the title or have that ruin their friendship, and boom, you got Ric Flair, and suddenly he's in her head, and she turns into this, egotistical, self-centered brat. And then you got Lynch, who's actually starting to connect with fans, as a scrappy, underdog babyface. And, she kind of dropped the perkiness, and she started showing a more serious demeanor. And it started to reflect in the in-ring style. She was a little bit more aggressive. And it was really allowing fans to get behind her. You didn't have this early on when it was, Team PCB and all this and that. Lynch was fading in the background. Not that it was her fault, but, they didn't really provide a proper way to get fans to notice her. She was just kind of there. She had a couple of really good matches in NXT prior to getting called up, but that can only do so much for you when you're shown with like 8 other women and you're just basically in the background. This was actually the first time we could really see what Lynch was all about. So I just loved the storyline going in, and just everything played out perfectly, and I thought the match was probably their best that they've had to this point. And then you followed up with the stuff with Sasha, and the only thing I wasn't crazy about was the fact that we didn't know if Banks was a face or heel, per se.
I think they're going to have her as a face.
With the Charlotte and Lynch feud, you knew who the heel and who the face was. Banks came out, and, basically at the end of the segment, she teased reuniting, the whole BFFs thing with Charlotte, but and then ended up attacking her, which made the point that she wanted a shot at the championship. When that in of itself would have been really good, and just having her be a face, but she attacked Lynch even before attacking Charlotte. Like, I don't know if it was just set up by design to have her like kind of fool Charlotte, but I think it took fans out of the moment by having her attack like the other babyface in the ring, and it kind of took a little while to kind of build to that point when they could have just had her, Lynch could have just been outside in the ring, just walked to the back, and they could have just had Banks, like, embrace Charlotte, do the exact same thing, just have no interaction between Banks and Lynch. But, I do think what they're trying to do is a triple threat match, and I'm all on board with that. But I just want to know, I think if Banks is a babyface, it seems at least she's dropped the Team Bad affiliation, so at least she has that, and thank God, because that's only getting worse. But
true. But that's like so unexplained,
It's not going to its fullest potential.
Right.
You got heel Charlotte, babyface Lynch, and Banks is somewhere in the middle. But if she was a face, I think this feud could be a whole lot better.
Yeah.
True.
I was going to say, this leads back, the Lynch and Charlotte match leads back to NXT days, because they both came in around the same time. Lynch always flip-flopped between face and heel. Charlotte, same thing. She was the heel for a nice little run, and then turn face. They put on hell of a matches in NXT. They come to the main roster. The whole Divas Revolution was a friggin' botch itself. But now this match was just probably one of their best matches on the main roster. And then Banks adds more greatness to this feud. So I'm all for Sasha for the title.
True. I mean, they can go either way with this. They can have a triple threat, or they can have just Banks and Charlotte. But
knowing WWE, they're gonna do a fatal four-way. Paige versus Charlotte. Paige versus Charlotte versus Sasha versus Becky.
Yeah, I mean, they want to try to involve as many people as they can. But I mean, as seeing this momentum going up, there's going to be a point where WWE is going to try to replicate the same effect that they had in, like, let's say, for example, the Banks Bayley match, and they want that at WrestleMania. But it's going to be very hard to do that on the main roster because there's so many limitations. Because how long were they out there? They actually gave them a little time. But the spots, there were so many botches there. There were so many things that, went wrong. For one, Ric Flair kissed Becky Lynch. That was a kind of a shocker. Everybody's like, well, what the, how's that, how does that relate? And it kind of got things like, okay, so, what's going to happen next? But
I actually thought Becky was going to win.
I actually thought the same because, they had to have a title change. I mean, that would have been a good way to kick it off. But I think they want to keep her strong. They want to keep Charlotte strong.
Until WrestleMania when Sasha wins.
Yeah, just try to build this this face thing, or this face heel thing, where traditional matchup. But it might be the first time where we just see two divas fight it out for the belt, and it might be a good match. We'll see. But moving on to that,
it's a big risk.
Yeah.
'Cause you need to find characters to have a better in-ring story, because you want to see the heel lose and you want to root for the face. When you don't have any dynamics, it takes, as good as a match as you could have, you're not invested in it emotionally, Well, you're watching the wrestling and you're like, yeah, all right, this is good, but you're not as fully drawn into the match as you could be. There's a reason why Sasha and Bayley had such a freaking awesome match at TakeOver Brooklyn, and that was for the reason that Banks played the perfect, brash, in-your-face heel, didn't care about anyone else. And then you had Bayley, who was, trying hard to prove herself and to try to prove Banks wrong in her assessment that, hey, you're not good enough to be here, you're not good enough to be champion. And basically, Bayley is saying, yes, I am good enough to be here, and I will be champion. Boom, that was the story heading into the match, and then they just ran away with it.
Nick, leading up to the Brooklyn match, is that when she got into Izzy's face, or was that after?
No, Izzy's face was actually at TakeOver Respect when it was
the
30-minute Iron. Yeah, that was 30-minute Iron Man.
I couldn't remember if it was before or after Brooklyn.
Yeah, in of itself, that was a really good match too, with its own moments, and I'd say that was a close second to Brooklyn. But
really close second, really close.
Yeah, really close second. I just love all the elements of that, involving the steel.
That's the best Divas feud we've seen in a long time, actually.
Yeah, it was a smartly wrestled match, but coming down to the wire, but it was melodramatic, but still believable. And then the whole thing with Izzy, it was like, damn, I'm like, Sasha Banks is like the heel of the century.
She is.
She made a 10-year-old cry.
She's the favorite, but yet she's the fan favorite, but she can pull it off pretty good.
Well,
and still be the heel.
The thing with this feud. Is Sasha going to be a face or like the baby face? That's the only question. Because you can't have two heels.
Yeah,
you can't have two heels going at it.
Because what you need, because Charlotte is too much of a heel right now, and you want to see people dethrone her. You got Lynch, who just had about 3 or 4 matches, couldn't get the job done, so now they're setting up Banks to be the next person. Why on earth is Banks going to be pushed as a heel in this situation? They were doing the same thing with Paige. When Paige was kind of somewhere between a heel and a face, she was kind of doing that tweener thing for a little bit. And now she's suddenly on the main roster again with Natalya, her best friend.
They hated each other.
She attacked her backstage.
No, she never did it.
I guess we're just supposed to kind of forget that. Well,
No,
it
no.
was definitely implied that she attacked her.
There's a lot of unexplained things though. There's like a lot of unexplained things, and WWE's done this in the past where they've had things happen and it's been unexplained, and it's like, what the fuck? Like, why would it happen? Like with Paige and Natalia.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why would it happen?
When they do stuff like this, it just makes me want to go to Mex America and just drink like 6 whiskey shots and just forget about everything.
This makes me want to watch TNA. Said no one ever.
I will give them credit though. They've been putting on a pretty good show lately, and their audience is kind of going.
I mean, well, they're cutting house shows now, so we'll have to see how that works. Financially they might not be lasting, but I mean, creatively they're doing something.
I will give them a minute to praise them because they just did a really big double turn. And Matt Hardy, if you remember, he had a really nice run in Ring of Honor as a top heel. He's doing the exact same thing now in TNA.
Nice.
And I think he might possibly be doing his best career work to date. Like, I would just be watching TNA just solely for the Matt Hardy act.
For the record, before we move on, do you guys think that Matt Hardy is a better heel than Bully Ray in TNA?
Probably.
I think, Bully is always going to be better because he's always got the rough and tough promo style.
Not even that, he just looks like the heel anyway.
He could.
Bully just looks like the heel.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, if you see, what's really crazy is that they involved Rebby Sky. That's kind of crazy, and you see her, getting involved.
And then maybe.
I mean, she's a bitch. Like, I've heard many people, countless times, people tell me when they've actually gone to ROH shows and they've seen her in the crowd, she's a bitch to everybody. She is a
remember
bitch.
Ryan? Remember Ryan that we worked with?
Yeah, he was the one that told me. Yeah.
He told me stories that she didn't want anyone near her taking pictures with her. She wanted like the whole section cleared. I'm like, yo, what the hell? She's a nobody.
It's a lot of people saying the same thing, but if they can translate that into something big there, that's a big deal.
It has, because, I don't think you guys have watched TNA, but basically they did this whole turn, and now the biggest heel stable is Matt Hardy. You got Rebby, who's his heel, they're kind of doing like a La Familia kind of thing, and then Tyrus is the bodyguard. So think of Matt and Rebby kind of like Edge, Vicky, and then you got like whoever that bodyguard for him was. The name is
Luther Reigns.
Skipping me.
Was it Luke Gallows?
No, not Gallows. It was this different guy. Something with a B. I gotta look this up because he had Bam Neely. Yeah.
Oh wow, that's a.
So they're kind of doing like this La Familia kind of thing. So you got Matt, Rebby, and Tyrus, and they're kind of just doing the same La Familia storyline, but it works so well because Matt's so antagonistic as a heel that it just seems natural. And the way they set up the double turn was actually pretty nice because they did it during the Last Man Standing match. Matt was putting his career on the line, and EC3, he's the heel champion going in, and he's like, you have nothing I want. So Matt put his career on the line. And basically, as the match progressed, Matt started doing, things that were kind of below the belt. Like, he literally low-blowed EC3. He went to his wife's in the crowd and pulled a hammer out of the diaper bag because she was holding his, 5-month-old son. So he took a hammer out of the diaper bag, and then he started doing and then he did a twist of fate with his head in the chair. Like, all of these things that are just like, whoa, this isn't the Matt Hardy we're used to. And EC3, every time before the count to 10 would happen, he would get up. So he was starting to get, the sympathy. So there was starting to be a change, like a turn of dynamics, and then after the match, after Hardy wins the belt, he gave like the promo of his career. Like, you have to look it up on YouTube. I think this could be a really good turning point for TNA if they're sticking to what they're doing right now. Like, a lot of the shows still need some work. I don't know why Feast or Fired is still ever a thing, or why you want to compete in a match where you could get fired even if you're a good worker. When you could just earn a title shot.
Last year, Velvet got fired.
Yeah. So, I mean, some of these matches and stipulations are ass backwards, but in their main event storylines, they're handling things really good right now. So, even though we're talking about the Rumble and the Raw Fallout, I did have to dedicate a little bit of time to TNA. And if you do get Pop TV, check it out. If not, you can still find it on YouTube. You kind of just have to do a little bit of searching. But I would seek out this past week's show and that last man standing match if you want to try to give TNA one more chance.
True. And we, again, here at RSN, we don't advocate that, but, advocate looking up two things. One, watching TNA.
Oh, wow, we do have Pop TV now on IO.
Yeah, we got Cablevision.
Lucky bastards.
2 weeks now.
Lucky bastards. That ass, I don't have that shit either. It's like crazy. Time Warner doesn't have that at all. It's crazy.
Yeah, but Time Warner gets El Rey Network, so
we got Comet too.
I would gladly trade Pop TV for and I gotta watch the ROH shows on their actual website.
True. I mean, there's a lot of stuff also that happened. If you guys want, we'll turn this into a shoot podcast. You guys want to do that?
Well, we still have the last hour to talk about.
We got 5 minutes actually. That's the 30-minute mark.
Let's
3 minutes actually.
Let's kind of like Shoot 3.0.
Shoot 3.0. All right, we'll turn into a Shoot 3.0. All right, that works. Well, I mean, there's a lot of other things that happen also. You could also take into account the fact that Lucha was also on. It was a phenomenal way.
We have one more hour to cover for the Rumble, right?
Well, actually, we got 30 minutes actually. Yeah, I mean we're 30 minutes in right now actually. So if you guys want to go another 15?
Why don't we just go for an hour?
You guys want to go an hour?
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, why not?
All right, that works. We'll just turn this into a shoot, I guess then. But I mean, either way, I mean, well, talking about Lucha, for example, if you guys seen the show, it was phenomenal.
I have not seen this week's, but it's next on my watch list.
If you get a chance, it is freaking the way they did it, perfect, and the way that they had it, it's it's starting off pretty good.
Yeah.
It was the season premiere, right?
That's the season premiere. Yep.
Yeah, I had some really high hopes based off how the first season ended, that the second season wouldn't lose that kind of storytelling pace. So I'm having really high hopes right before I watch it. But basically, up to this week, I've watched, Rumble, Raw, and TNA. Even then, it's still a pretty newsworthy week. But, we still got NXT, ROH, and Lucha, and SmackDown.
SmackDown was really good.
NXT was really good, yeah.
Yeah. I've heard really good things, too. Don't sleep on SmackDown, either. SmackDown is starting to become, really good television, just based off the commentary team of Mauro Ranallo. He's used to do commentary for New Japan Pro Wrestling and
Strikeforce, right?
Yeah, Strikeforce. And then you got Jerry Lawler, who's back to being a heel, and then you got Byron Saxton as the babyface commentator. Their dynamic is so brilliant now; it almost makes SmackDown watchable again.
True. I mean,
going back
also
to the Rumble, guys.
Too.
Going back to the Rumble, what was your highlight of the Rumble?
AJ
for sure.
AJ
well, why don't you, yeah. I mean, why don't you call it? What's your thoughts on this, Rich? Because you were the one that said you wanted to call it,
AJ Styles. That's all I gotta say. AJ
Styles. I mean, let's take it back a little bit. So Roman comes out.
He lasted a half hour in the match. That's more than what I thought they were gonna give him.
And this is debut. That's also crazy. At least he didn't get thrown over the top rope and 5 minutes in. That was pretty good. But I mean, if you see it,
he eliminated 3 people. Had his little standoff with Jericho. Lasted a half hour. I was happy.
It was very satisfying to see that. I mean, the fact that he came out. I mean, the way it was set up, Roman was in the ring, took out Rusev. Rusev walks to the back, and then you hear this music. And basically, you have this big zoomed up, I don't know if Vince or who else is back there. Whatever,
if you look online, if you look on the WWE website, you actually see the full entrance, not just Roman's face. You actually see the full thing.
it was probably Kevin Dunn that said, "Oh, zoom up to his face." I guarantee you. So basically, you have the zoom up angle to his face, and in the background you hear the music, and at the same time you're thinking, "Who the fuck is this?" Like it's like, damn.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, who the hell's music is that? I don't know
I
who
thought
it
it
is.
was I thought it was Dude Love or some shit. I was like, "Oh my god, he's in the Rumble, like, shit!" And then when you see it, and then you see the Titantron, I am phenomenal. That was crazy.
Once I
Everybody
saw
knew.
I'm like, I know who it is.
Yeah, and then when you saw that the Titantron come up, everybody just like came unglued. And then after that, when you actually see him, that was like the icing on the cake. That was like, holy shit, he's actually here.
You remember the preview podcast we did? I believe your exact words. If he comes out and doesn't get a big pop, what's gonna happen? You were wrong there,
True.
sir.
True. I agree.
You were wrong.
I'm glad. I'm glad I was wrong. I'm glad because that if they had him show up on Raw, I guarantee you people would have booed him. And on top of that,
though, is the dirt sheets were actually wrong this week.
Everyone
said he wasn't in the area. His last ROH match was in Miami the night before.
Yeah.
So
it was like a 3-hour drive.
Perfect.
Yeah, it was like a 3-hour drive, and he showed up and everything, and they showed the backstage video too, where he came up in a van.
You know what's insane? He's had like the best month ever because he had that really highly acclaimed match with Shinsuke Nakamura like on January 4th, which was
the final match,
Wrestle Kingdom and New Japan. And then he does all these ROH tapings, and then they do the whole Bullet Club send-off, which was kind of mirroring the curtain call, because he got kicked out of the stable. We got there embracing him and sending him off. And then he shows up in the Royal Rumble match. So he just worked 3 shows for 3 different companies in 1 month. And
his match on Raw was great too, with Jericho.
Yeah, he turned January into like his biggest
AJ Styles month.
Yeah.
AJ Styles, yeah. It was crazy, like you saw. But you know what really got me though? This is pretty interesting. You know when that spot when they take Roman out? By the way, it's a pretty shady spot when they have Roman miss out half the Rumble. Like, how are you gonna expect people to follow him? But anyway.
But the thing is, you kind of figured he was gonna be one of the last 4, so you can't have him in a full match.
Sure, but I mean, they took him out halfway, and then I mean, Vince and the League of Nations, they take him out, and then there's this whole spot where he gets out. What's really interesting to me was how AJ was in the ring. Vince McMahon was on the outside. If you told me 5 years ago, maybe not even 10 years ago, you told me that Vince and AJ would be that far apart, I would tell you you're a freaking liar. That was really crazy to me because AJ, you have a guy who has who has said a lot of stuff about WWE in the past, and you have Vince who is very, very critical on people. He's like, that guy isn't somebody. Yeah, he hates the indies. Plus, he has this bad thing for all the indie guys and everything. But when you seen that, it was that was pretty memorable because you saw Vince and AJ.
But the ironic part is most of his biggest stars now come straight from the indies.
Let's go through the list. Big stars now. Kevin Owens, Indies God. Dean Ambrose, Indies. Seth Rollins, Indies. Cesaro, Indies and overseas. Right there, that's 4 big Indies guys that he has on the main roster. Then you go.
And what about Finn Balor? Who he's trying to call up?
I was just about to say, let's go to
Neville.
NXT now. Oh yeah, I forgot Neville. Then you could go to NXT. Every other superstar is an Indies person.
That's a fact, Joe.
So
I mean, they're trying to bring up Joe. Yeah. But you know what I'm saying? I'll tell you.
If you go by what they said about James Storm, he was in the Indies for 15 years. So Joe has been in the Indies for just around the same time then, right?
Yeah, Storm actually went back to TNA.
Yeah, I heard Beer Money came back.
Yeah, but that's interesting. It's all about money, I think, because every man has their priorities. If it's
if TNA signed the Bullet Club supposedly.
Oh, you seen that big post? That was so crazy.
Yeah.
Were they trying to sabotage that return?
That was kind of.
When do you see the Bullet Club coming into NXT? I gave it like a month.
This was the actual notice. Dixie Carter called the 4 members of the Bullet Club to her house and struck a deal with them. They said okay, and a handshake. So you're basically just gonna announce that after the fact that there's rumors of them signing. that's kind of like, what the hell, man? You guys are trying to sabotage it? Like, what are you guys gonna do to sabotage this? Like, if they had actually done that, TNA would be hated even more than they are now.
They kind of, I think they're just trying to derail because they probably got wind that Styles was going to debut for the Rumble. They just didn't, they wanted to try to squander that, but I don't know. They have no actual proof that a deal was made, nothing was signed. You can't really get mad that they backed out of a deal because nothing was officially signed. So until it's official, everything is still, nothing is set in stone. So why on earth, yeah, I get, signing with WWE is it's a big career move. And yeah, maybe they said, all right, we'll work with you for TNA, but they can't get mad because nothing, it was their responsibility to start getting that paperwork out a lot faster. Maybe the process was taking longer than they would have liked, and they just went with WWE, and they probably offered a lot more money.
Plus, what money does TNA have to offer?
Especially with the way they're booking.
Yeah. But I heard their situation is getting better thanks to the Pop TV deal.
True, but I mean, they've seen their fallout with Destination America, where it came to a point where they had to get their competitor ROH on the network, and then next thing you know, they kind of experimented with it and said, okay, we don't want nothing to do with wrestling. That's it, we're out. That, I mean, that if you have that kind of impact on our network, that's got to say something about what you're doing to the business. I mean, the business is, it's been growing. You've seen the expansion of Lucha Underground, the Indies, GFW, you name it, everything. But for them to actually do that to like a network, that kind of puts a hard a stamp on everybody else. Because let's say if, for example, like another big company, like let's say what other companies are out there? Like, yeah, I mean, Japan. What if New Japan wants to get on US TV? Not to say anytime soon that they're trying to get on, but if they did, and let's say networks were like, oh no, we don't want that wrestling, no, we don't want that, we don't want that. That puts a very bad statement on the wrestling industry, and then TNA is to blame because they say, oh, you guys fucked up, so now we can't get on TV. So it's like that fucks up the whole industry. Because it's kind of messed up to see that, but I mean this Pop TV deal, hopefully it works out. We'll see what happens with them. Hopefully it'll stay on.
Well, from what Nick said, it's doing pretty well, so that could be a good sign.
That could be, but we'll have to see from there. But yeah, I mean this whole week, the biggest highlight, AJ coming out and the Royal Rumble was surprising everybody. But what about the next night on Raw? Supposedly the match happened. Dream match, supposedly. Many dubbed it. I'd say personally it was a dream match. Jericho versus AJ Styles on Raw.
I think it was Raw amazing. Debut. Great match.
That was beautiful. They started it. They did it on the second hour of Raw. I think it was like a 10 or I think 9, something like that. They had it on the second hour, and then they had this whole match. Fantastic match. Great build up. Everything was perfect.
I mean, yeah, I think it was very much a match that Styles and Jericho would have together. And both of them worked in their signature stuff and had a little bit of technical, a little bit of high-flying, very much what you would expect. And I would say it was a very solid match. But I can't help but notice that Styles, while they're booking him very carefully, they're not... Maybe Styles is still trying to adapt to the WWE style.
I think he is.
Yeah.
My brother was watching the match. He's a big fan of both guys. And he said he wasn't actually crazy about the match. I talked to a few people who have actually said, they weren't as thrilled by the match as they thought they would be. They think maybe Styles is a little bit lost right now in WWE.
Because if you think about it, he signed at the beginning of the month. He hasn't worked a match. His first match is the Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to adapt 1, 2, 3.
True. I mean, on top of the fact that if you've seen the biggest, I think, point that everybody got right now, have you ever seen him used at the Style Clash, actually? Despite SmackDown.
No.
He never actually used it.
He tried to use it 3 or 4 times in the Rumble.
I think that's just the booking. They're kind of wishy-washy with him because they've seen what happens with when you botch the Styles Clash, for example, with Yoshitatsu. Yeah, with Yoshitatsu. Bad injury, career-threatening injury. So that's kind of a big no-no move, you know. I mean, but it's kind of limiting him, you know. It's kind of saying, okay, well, what can you do with this guy? But I mean, nonetheless,
But
that was
yeah, the fact that they had Michael Cole name drop the Styles Clash, I just think they're just building up to it so that it gets a big pop when he finally gets to pull it off. What I'm personally dying for is a Styles Neville match. I think that's gonna blow everything out of the
Oh,
water.
definitely.
That's gonna happen on Raw. I don't see it being a feud because I think right now they're gonna do Styles and Jericho, just based off the way Jericho was last seen on Raw, kind of accepting Styles' handshake, but kind of doing it in a way that was kind of swarmy, and he kind of gave that little smirk.
Oh, he does. You know, I just
yeah.
remember that we forgot to mention about the Royal Rumble. The year-long Curtis Axel.
Oh, yeah, he finally got
lasted
eliminated.
1 year in the Rumble.
Hey, finally a year-long Rumble position, and he got taken out. So that's the story.
I just forgot. We forgot to mention that he's been in it for officially 1 year.
It's crazy.
True. It was a big social media thing. But how do you guys feel on top of that? How do you guys feel about the social outcasts?
I like the idea. They're not really building them as a group you could take as a threat. I personally couldn't stand that Flo Rida thing. I think it says a lot when Bo Dallas is a better rapper than Flo Rida, because Flo Rida, I don't know what the hell Flo's lines were, but that was kind of sad actually. It wasn't a good lead into a match with the Dudleys. Why the hell would the Dudleys and Flo Rida have like anything to do with each other? And then they should be building up like social outcasts as a group of rebels who complain on social media, and they work their way to title matches, and they cheat and they do all this stuff, and then they should be building a hot streak, not being taken as jokes and losing so many matches so suddenly. Like, what's the point of just grouping them together if that's what you're gonna do? I kind of had
jobbers.
I kind of have the same complaint with League of Nations, because they're kind of just like the upper mid-card social outcast. Yeah, they get their moments where they shine, but they come off like a group of middle-aged, midlife crisis fathers who like hang out at the bar or something like that. Like, I'm thinking of Simpsons, like Homer, Lenny, Carl, and Barney, like going to the bar together. That's what League of Nations looks like to me right now.
You could also throw in a Family Guy one. Peter, Cleveland, Quagmire, and Joe. That's the League of Nations.
Yeah, that's what it feels like.
Well, we're two of the biggest news right now. Supposedly, Sheamus got injured. Yeah, besides that, before we get to that, Sheamus got injured supposedly, and now Alberto Del Rio also got injured supposedly. Supposedly, there's something that happened where he showed up on Raw, he fought in like a taping, I think, or like a live event. His back went out, low back. Wow. That's a pain, right? You start feeling pain over there. Something's happening. Plus with Sheamus, he was caught over the tapings with a cast around his arm. Something's happening there. The injury bug is getting everybody now. It's crazy. But
2015 was the year of the injury, though.
True. I mean, despite the fact, also, since we're talking about The Rock.
Yeah.
Rock,
since you mentioned injuries. Yeah, since you mentioned injuries, Nikki Bella won successful in surgery. That's good.
True. And she was causing the whole thing with Cena. Probably Total Divas, it'll be on it. But I mean, The Rock, another thing with injuries, he can't compete at WrestleMania supposedly because of insurance issues or some shit like that, which is kind of retarded.
Movies.
It's dumb, and companies are like, no, we don't want you wrestling. We don't want you risking injury so that you can't play the role in our films. That's
but
stupid.
He's gonna be there.
To be fair, though, I think Rock would probably want his last WWE match to be that main event one with Cena, rather than, I guess, maybe they would put him in a 6-man with the Usos and the New Day, which would maybe be throwaway material. Rock being on the show would really help boost the show's must-see factor, but I think Rock is probably leaning towards that match with Cena being like his career closer, because that's something you can look back. Yeah, that's something you can look back on. And obviously, they're not going to do Rock and Triple H at this point based on the ending overall, which irks me to no end. But I'll get to that in a little bit.
True. I mean, there's a lot of things that also happen. I mean, what about the Rock and the New Day segment? That I think was
the highlight of that whole segment was when he won off script and went to the guys at the side at the front row.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, when he was calling out those 3 guys that were dressed. One was like Hulk Hogan, one was Macho Man, and the other was
One was Taker.
Oh yeah, one was Taker.
It was Taker, Hogan, Macho Man, and The Rock.
That was, I mean, The Rock, you gotta see. He has the power to, grab, people's attention, getting them into it. Despite the fact that, despite, only having the TV audience, he can also bring in the live audience, too. So that's pretty, that's something right there. But, I mean, the promo that they had with the New Day, that was pretty hilarious right there, what they said. And you saw, when he kind of said, he said, "Oh, why you guys got a bunch of llama penises on your head?" And they're like, "You can't say that. You can't say that on TV. You can't say
penis on TV."
That was hilarious, and that seemed so natural right there, because Rock was kind of flinching, like, "Oh shit, I shouldn't have said that." And he's like, "Oh fuck it, who cares?" That was hilarious.
Part of it was, I mean, yeah, I got the kick out of The Rock, doing his usual walk around backstage and insult everyone. But there was something that kind of rubbed me the wrong way a little bit. Like, the stuff with Lana. Lana wasn't on TV since the ending of that storyline, and then they insinuated, she was a whore. Like, she kind of just looked uncomfortable there. And then you had Rock kind of doing some kind of borderline racist insults on New Day. They called, what did he call Biggie?
Did he call
Big
Byron?
Mama? And then he
Did he call Byron Saxton the black guy?
Yeah, that other black guy. And then
oh my god.
And then New Day was actually referring to themselves as, here are 3 black guys you do know and love. It was just kind of like, all right, this is just kind of taking on a weird tone, but it definitely was entertaining. I'll give it that. I've been clamoring for a Rock New Day segment for the longest time, but I think something about it just was a little bit kind of rubbed me the wrong way, aside from the usual Rock promo. But yeah, I mean, that's what I think. But and the llama penis thing is just another example of them taking something senseless and just turning it into a trending Twitter topic. But to be fair, the unicorn horns are a high merchandise seller, and I don't know if they want to turn people away from that by having them dismissed now as
llama penises.
Yeah, basically.
But I mean, there's still that drawing factor of the New Day. Everybody still loves the New Day. Everybody still, they're
actually entertaining. That's why.
They are, and they do it every week. They're not showing one-time appearances. Every time they come, they always come up with something new, and that's something that's pretty good, to see that. But yeah, I mean, it was a pretty good segment. A lot of good things, it came out as a lot of bad things too. But on top of the fact, what if there was also another thing? Nation of Domination, because Rock is one of the members. So could they be teasing something with Nation of Domination versus the New Day?
I doubt it. I don't know. That's gonna be hard to do that.
I mean, it'd be hard, but I mean, just to have one appearance where all 3, 3 members of the Nation of Domination come out with the Rock.
You got Mark Henry still active.
Mm-hmm.
So could come back, and you got Ron Simmons.
True. I mean, they could do some, or Godfather, maybe he'd come back, but.
I don't know, because you got Ron Simmons and Mark Henry still on the contract. Godfather only comes back for, the Rumble, usually.
So they can cut out something. But, I mean, just to have one gem of a little, segment, that'd be pretty good.
You think about it, you had the New Age Outlaws come back.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing moving on. The rumors are everybody's been talking about. Actually, 3. NXT and, well, actually all NXT mostly. Specifically for Dallas and March. The big signings, 3 of them actually. Shinsuke Nakamura came out on a vignette, and supposedly he came up on the screen, and they announced him for Dallas TakeOver. That's a pretty big deal right there.
The greatest man who ever lived, Austin Aries.
And that's another big thing. That was the shocker right there. Austin Aries to come out, and that's another thing right there. They have another former TNA World Champion competing on TNA. I mean on
No,
NXT.
he was an indie guy.
He was an indie guy too. I mean, yeah, but most famously, people will know that. But also Lou Gallows and what is it? Lou Gallows and Carl Anderson. Supposedly they're supposed to
Still
come
not
in I
official
think in
yet.
March. Well, yeah, from what I heard, they're rumoring them to have them come back in March to tape there, like after WrestleMania or something like that. But we'll have to see from there. But on top of the fact, what really gets me too, also how they bring up. If you read AJ Styles' bio, I've actually read it. I've actually gone through it. They don't mention TNA ever. And I think that's their most biggest downfall because right now they have a challenge. I think in their mind, they have this challenge of how do we educate the fans about AJ Styles without mentioning TNA, and that's pretty hard to do. I mean, you can mention ROH, sure, but what
Yeah,
about
but they have an advantage because they can actually mention New Japan Pro Wrestling and IWGP, and they've mentioned it on the air. So,
Because don't they have a deal
Styles
with them or
was
something?
basically a big name coming straight from New Japan, so they're able to get him over really quickly on that front.
Don't they have a deal with NJPW?
Yep.
No, I think it was only one time. That was only one time with Jushin Liger for him to appear. But I think WWE has had a lot of history with NJPW, bad things, good things, but it's always been a roller coaster ride, and there's always been some animosity between the two. It's always happened. But yeah, nonetheless, I mean, we pretty much covered everything, I guess, right, guys?
No,
And we even went off topic too.
Really?
On top of it,
but we didn't cover one thing.
Shoot.
what?
Why is Reigns getting another shot at the title when the Authority booked the Rumble match to get the freaking belt off of him?
True. I mean, there's this plan going on. I don't know if you heard of it.
Well, I'm hearing something. When you finish, I wanted to say what I heard.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think you might be saying the same thing probably right now. Supposedly they have the plans that halfway through the Rumble, they're supposed to have what you call it? Triple H was supposed to lose actually, and Roman was supposed to retain.
No,
and then that's when
not all I heard.
So what'd you
No,
hear?
I heard something different.
I heard Brock is supposed to win the title,
Really?
and
That's interesting.
he's in a feud with Bray Wyatt for the title at Mania. That's what I heard.
That's interesting.
No, I heard something else. I
What'd you
heard
hear?
that I heard Triple H was supposed to eliminate Reigns to end the match, but because people were booing Reigns during the match, they didn't want it to end with cheers. They wanted it to end with boos, so that's why they made that last switch to have Ambrose be the last guy eliminated.
Yeah, I mean that's another thing. Ambrose was the second to last, so that's got to say something. They probably have trust in him, and they are lining him up for a title match. I mean, for a world title sometime soon in the near future. Maybe after Mania, maybe during Mania, we'll see. But it's pretty interesting, to see all these events unfold and all these different changes happen.
I mean, they weren't really setting up Reigns to be a guy who would want to cheer during the match, because if he got stretchered away from the Rumble and, came out later on, that's a different story. But he didn't even get stretchered. He walked backstage during a Rumble match. He was defending his freaking title. Kind of ass backwards, because if he could walk backstage, he could walk his ass back to the ring.
Mick Foley, yeah. I mean, yeah, Mick Foley. He fell from God knows how many feet, 35 feet down to the floor, onto a table. Got his ass up, and he kept fighting during the match. He got up back on the cage, fell through the ring again.
Teeth.
Yeah, lost a couple of teeth, and he still fought. He got off the stretcher and said, "Get the fuck out of here. I'm going to fight." And he did it.
But then you can also go back to the ECW days where he lost his ear during a match and still continued and fought and won the match with one ear.
It's interesting, but I mean, Roman, for something they got to make him a heel for sure. They have to, because at this point everybody's booing him. When he came on the Royal Rumble, everybody booed the crap out of him. Everybody, you saw that reaction. People didn't like it one bit. They kind of, they kind of hated it. They kind of they seen him come out right away, boos everywhere. People didn't like it one bit. They totally just didn't, they didn't get his vibe right there. But yeah, we pretty much covered everything, right, guys? I guess.
I think we basically covered everything. We covered the whole week.
Now you could say yes.
Yeah, I mean, well, we got Lucha. Lucha, we still have every week. It's gonna come on now. Also TNA, if you want to catch up on it.
Well, me and Nick could watch TNA.
I recommend it.
You would have to catch it online, Sal.
For TNA? Oh yeah, because I don't have Pop TV, but fuck it, we'll see. I mean,
I just found out I had Pop TV.
I mean, I got a Comet and what is it? I got El Rey Network. I can watch that, but still. But anyway, Rich.
Well, with that being said, world, I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. I hope you enjoyed Royal Rumble and Raw. With that being said, oh yeah, by the way, go check out Nick's website, ProWrestlingOpinion.com, for any up-to-the-moment updates during the shows. We forgot to plug that, so that's one thing we actually forgot to do.
Yeah.
In the beginning, we kind of brought it up.
Yeah, we gave a slight edge to PWO. Again, feel free to check it out, ProWrestlingOpinion.com. We cover pretty much anything that's nationally covered on television that is pro wrestling. Go check it out.
That's not even publicly put on TV. Also, we cover.
we got some independent stuff too, some mainstream, all the stuff in between. That actually rhymes. I actually might use that as a tagline. Who knows? And also check out some of our past episodes.
Copyright that, so WWE can't get any credit.
Yeah, the mainstream, independent, and in between.
Yep, we gotta start. Yeah. Also, be sure to check out our videos online, our YouTube videos. We have a whole list of podcasts. You can name it, best, worst, you name it, everything. We have regular podcasts, review podcasts, reviews, reactions, previews.
Check out our best of 2015.
Yeah, that was
also the year-end in review. Our 2-hour podcast. Be sure to check it out whenever you get a chance. Whenever you're bored, feel free to just
also put our Twitters on the video too.
I'll always put that up. Also, I'll put up the graphic, all that other stuff too. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and give us a shout out. Also, if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, all that stuff, leave it below.
If you guys want any topics covered by us, feel free to put a comment of what you want. Send us anything on Twitter, Facebook, anything that you want. So with that being said, this is RSN signing out. Have a nice night.
See you guys.
Later.